and organizations, sorry about that, just to let you know, we are recording also, but why most teams and organizations underperform. We've got some really strong insights into this area, but more importantly, we want you to come away from today with some practical tools that you can implement straight away. And of course, we'll also be telling you about, at the end, our offerings in order to look more deeply at a transformational program. But first and foremost, let's jump in and understand a bit more about what the problem is. And I'm sure that you will all identify with the problems and the pains that we're going to mention here, but we're also going to be talking about the solutions and why they matter and how they work. So we'll get kicked off, and I'll hand over to my partner in business and in life. Annree, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And thank you, everyone, for dialing into this last minute webinar I decided to run on Wednesday. And the reason I decided to run it is we are hearing a lot of problems inside teams and organizations right now. And the main things that are key issues for teams is still poor communication, lack of collaboration, reoccurring conflict. You all work inside organizations. I'm sure at times you've had conflict with people in your own team, in cross-functional teams. We also can have unhealthy teams and, importantly, misaligned teams. And when you're brave enough to ask each team inside your organization to rate their performance, looking at communication, trust, alignment, and execution and capacity, believe it or not, the average performance of a team inside any organization is stuck at 60% of their potential. So we're missing 40% of potential inside teams, and that's a huge cost to an organization. And I want you to think about those problems: poor communication, conflict, drama, gossip, lack of collaboration, lack of misalignment. And feel free to type into the chat what you're seeing inside your teams right now, or just get you to reflect on the problems that you're facing inside your teams. So most teams are actually underperforming, not because they lack talent. We've all got talent and a lot of capabilities, because we actually still don't know how to communicate in a way that builds trust, that truly aligns people and allows people to take team ownership and individual ownership. And our leadership blind spots, our own personal leadership blind spots, our lack of self-awareness are the number one reason for underperformance. If we can all be better at owning our blind spots, being better at behaving in a healthier way, we'll all perform better inside teams, unlock our own superpowers, but importantly, unlock the superpowers of other people inside our teams. I'd just like everyone to go on mute for a second, if you wouldn't mind. There's a little bit of background noise. That'd be wonderful. And if fatigue, Tracy, exactly, it is one of the biggest problems right now. And we actually have a tool on that we're not talking about today. It's actually around how do you make sure that your people are looking after themselves and doing self-care. Because when we don't look after ourselves and we're fatigued, people see the worst sides of us, the accidental side of us, not the intentional side of us. And when we look at teams, basically, exactly, Ellen, conflicting priorities. When we look at teams, believe it or not, when we ask people, is there anyone dominating conversations? There always is. And inside teams, 82% of employees would like to be more engaged, but inside their team, their brand team, cross-functional team, they're telling us when we measure this in a team performance assessment that people aren't hearing them. They don't feel valued and they feel underappreciated. And one of the main reasons, despite the fact that a number of you on this call work for big organizations, and we know you do your best job with psychometric assessments, But the struggle is keeping these psychometric assessments and tools alive inside organizations so that you can understand who are the different people on your team, who are the different voices on the team, and am I creating psychological safety for them?
One of the reasons that we look at inclusive leadership development is because traditionally we've had that part in the blue over there where executives have been given that exclusive training and it's been left to them to cascade that down in their own ways. And often that communication is lost in language that they use, it's lost in the delivery style that they use, and it's lost on a lot of the people, which forms a great deal of resentment, as you can see along that bottom line. So this style, what we propose here, is that this is a much more inclusive style, and we'll explain a little bit more about that, in that leadership at the top does actually drive the culture of an organization, but the subcultures and the sub-leaders are the ones who really live that each and every day. So training needs to be inclusive. It needs to have a common objective language. It needs to have visual tools that we can all understand and be able to relate to as soon as we see them. It's in a vocabulary, about developing that vocabulary that is expressed through visual tools. And again, it creates that common objective language, which is so important when we begin to scale out. If I'm going to be talking in terms of a particular, personality type, a particular tool that we're using, that language needs to be common and objective so that it can be understood well. It facilitates that productive communication, building those healthy cultures, not only from the top down, but also from within the organization and those subcultures. We have a little saying that culture always eats strategy for breakfast. Without a strategic, without a culture that's operating in a healthy manner, then we can't have a strategy that's going to bring outcomes that we require.
So
Annree.
today we're going to give you a number of visual tools, and I know many of you have done psychometric assessments before, but bear with me. To me, this is the most profound psychometric set of tools that you could give your people. Even if you're working in GSK and you use Myers-Briggs, or in AstraZeneca and you use DISC, or in Bristol Myers Squibb and you use something else, I want you to sort of really, for the next 5 minutes, sit tight, use what we're going to give you around 5 voices to add richness and layers to what you know about yourself already. This is transformational when you understand 5 voices. We speak all 5 voices, so you're not just one voice and there's 5 voices, but some voices are more natural to us than others. They're the voice that we use when we're not thinking, and the other voices, the lower voices, are voices that are our learned behavior that we actually have to work hard to use. 5 voices was based on the source code of union typology, Myers-Briggs, and has been validated through the Big 5. And we have used this with a number of you on this call today, and it is transformational for teams, because if you want to build high-performing teams, you have to have language and tools you can use every single day and call on and use inside team meetings to remember everyone's superpower, to create an environment and rules of engagement so that everyone is heard, valued, and appreciated. Because I think Tracy mentioned, we're so busy, we're fatigued right now. But with that fatigue comes accidental behaviors, pressure, and stress. And many of us, when we're like that, really don't understand what it's like to be on the other side of us. And this 5 minutes is actually going to help you. You can actually see that there's 5 voices, like characters in a storybook, easy to remember with a logo. There's nurturer, creative, guardian, connector, and pioneer. You can see that 2 voices live more in the present, nurturer and guardian, while the future-orientated voices are creative, connector, and pioneer. You can also see that there is different volumes of the voices. And I want you to think, when you look at the different volumes of the voices, Are you loud like me? Are you always heard inside a team that could make you a guardian, connector, or a pioneer? Or are you one of the quieter voices inside a team, a nurturer and creative? And do you need that psychological safety? Do you need people to draw out of you what you really think? What we're giving you today and what we give inside our workshops is, I want you to think of that we're all gardeners of ourselves, that we have a cheat sheet about ourselves, that we know how to grow like a plant, the right conditions of soil, water, and sunlight that we need. But more importantly, that you have these plant cheat sheets for your people on your team. How do I bring the best out of my people, and actually thinking about their superpowers, and have we got them even in the right roles? Are we maximizing their superpowers in the current organization? So as I go through this, I want you to think which voice is your top voice and which voice are you definitely not. And there will be a free 5 voices assessment you can take after this workshop, where you will now get a 5-page printout for free on your full 5 voices order, which gives you a very accurate description of your strengths, areas that are always going to be a challenge for you, because we all have areas that are going to be a challenge for us, growth opportunities, how you can connect with people who have a different voice order to you, which is incredibly important. It's one of the reasons teams underperform, is that we don't know how to communicate effectively with people who are different to us. So the first voice is nurturer. They carry the first aid kit. They are the champion of people, relational harmonies, and values. And if you're a leader of business or a leader of people, I want you to really think about this statistic. 43%, 4 out of 10 people on a team are nurturers. They're always for the team more than themselves. They will always have a little bit of imposter syndrome, and you are not going to hear the nurturer's voice unless you create that environment to be heard and invite them in to speak and understand their superpower. And they're certainly not going to speak if the team doesn't have psychological safety. If you're more a visionary leader, like a pioneer or connector who loves strategic vision, and you're rolling out change inside an organization, a nurturer needs to be your best friend, because a nurturer has a sixth sense of what's going inside teams, what's the pulse of the organization. And if you're rolling out a new strategy, they're going to tell you if this is going to be disastrous, the way you're communicating, why it's not going to work, how people are going to react to it. So very important for leaders to make sure, number one, that you have nurturers on your exec team, but you're have enabling environment to make sure that nurturers can use their wisdom and superpowers to be heard inside a team. Teams will not perform well without a nurturer. They dislike conflict. If there's conflict inside a team, they will just completely withdraw, and you will not be able to embrace this champion of people, relational harmonies, and values. For all of us who work in healthcare, and there's a lot of us on the call, a huge proportion of doctors and nurses inside hospitals who we work with closely are nurturers. So I want you to think, is nurturer one of your lowest voices like me, or one of your top voices? Or have you identified a team member that may be a nurturer, and how can you bring the best out in them?
Yeah, thanks, Annree. And we'll just move along to the creative voice, which is the second quietest or the second least forceful, as indicated by the volume bars there. Interestingly, first voice creatives only represent a small 9% of the population. Who is the creative? The creative are the champions of future ideas, innovation, and importantly, organizational integrity as well. Their icon is the telescope, because the creative is on their tippy toes, and they are highly valuable in today's digital, fast-moving world, because they are often the people who are able to perceive and see threats and opportunities long before many of the other voices do. The creative is somebody who is a great starter. They live in a future-oriented capacity. And sometimes with the creative, we also have the growth areas, as do all voices. For the creative, That can often be in terms of communicating those ideas that are often very conceptual. So articulating those can sometimes be a problem. In fact, we see it where the creative speaks his mind or her mind in a meeting, but not being articulated, being a conceptual thinker, it often comes across as something quite way out there. When teams learn to work together and understand that about the creative, they can ask them, what do you mean by that? Tell me again what you were trying to explain. And the real gold, the real value can then come through from the creative voice, who does sometimes struggle first times with their communication, but are highly valuable, as are all the voices. The creative is someone who you need on your team. Annree.
So the next is the guardian. You're always going to hear the guardian, and we see a lot of these roles inside clinical operations, clinical research, medical affairs, compliance. They're the champion of due diligence, resources, efficient systems and processes, and they represent 30% of the organization, and they're more present orientated. So are you a guardian? Are you a truth teller and a truth seeker? If somebody is squandering financial resources or not using the budget wisely, you are going to tell them if you are a guardian. If you have a guardian on your team, and I struggled with guardians on my team because I'm a pioneer, and I wish I knew this, because they would ask me difficult questions. And guardians are asking you difficult questions because they're actually trying to help you. So if you understand the superpower of the guardian, let them ask their difficult questions. They're trying to pick holes in your strategy and actually trying to help you, and let them run a pilot project. If you're trying to drive change inside an organization, running a pilot project is important to the guardian. They want to test it in the small before moving into the big, and that will give them data, and they will lead the charge for change. For me, it was one of the voices I found I struggled to work with, but now that I understand their superpower, they had skills that I didn't have. They could pick holes in things, ask difficult questions. And sometimes I thought guardians were actually out to get me, but they were actually trying to help me. And again, that was my own lack of self-awareness, the fact that we couldn't make Insights Discovery or Myers-Briggs work every day inside the organization.
Thank you, Annree. And moving along to the next voice, which is the second most forceful voice. Again, look at those volume bars. That is the voice of the connector. And the connector, as the name probably suggests, a champion of that relational networking, sending out collaborative messaging, personality type, and being able to bring effective communication and collaboration, not only externally, but also internally, and often are that really vital bridge between gathering the insights externally and bringing it and articulating it internally. The connector is a person who you'll probably know them when you start to think about them, and you might even see it in yourself, but they're often a person who really thrives on bringing everybody along on the journey. They're highly vibrant, highly energetic, and that they will always know someone who can help solve a problem, or they know someone who knows someone else who can help solve the problem. Often a person with a massive contacts list, and someone who's really willing to share and able to bring the entire group, whoever they see, they're on the journey together. The connector often, when speaking to people, speaks with such passion, because it is true. They can come across salesy, but that's not where they're coming from. They really do connect with the heart before the head. And that's why the mature connector is so valuable in bringing people together and moving forward as a team. A really vital one. Interestingly, a first voice connector only represents that small 11% of the population, and has that future orientation, thinking about what could be as opposed to what is. So that's the connector voice. How does that resonate with you, Annree?
So last is the pioneer voice, which is me, the loudest voice with the red decibel warning sign for ourselves, how loud we can be. And interestingly, an intentional, mature pioneer has the power to create a high-performing team, because they will make sure that they are asking the nurturer for their opinion. They will ask clarifying questions of the creative to make sure we're seeing the opportunities and threats. They will allow the guardian to ask their difficult critiquing questions and work with the connector. So our role is to create that psychological safety, as is everyone else's on the team. We champion strategic vision. We love solving problems. It's got the logo of the mountain, because we will drive a team to achieve things that a team didn't believe were possible. We're highly competitive and love to win, very good aligning systems, resources, finances to hit that strategic target. But the main thing the pioneer needs to work out for is, very often when we're fatigued and stressed, like Tracy said, we can create the worst environment for people. We can shoot down the other voices and actually think our opinion is the only one that's right, and that we are not the best listeners at times. So we have a duty of care for everyone else on the team. I want you to think now, if you would like to type into the chat, if you know your 5 voices, what your first voice is. Some of you know it already, or has anyone identified what they think their first voice might be in the chat after this sort of pen sketch. We run a whole workshop, and we run a whole workshop on this.
And just before you move on there, Annree, I'd like to point out one further interesting point, is that looking at the population levels, if you put together the nurturer and the guardian, you're looking at 73%, 3/4 of the population that you come across and you are communicating with are present-oriented voices. People who I just spoke about a second ago, who live in the here and now and are really interested in strategy and future innovation. However, they need to understand what the steps forward are. And that's a big part of something that we're going to talk about in the slides coming up, is about team dynamics. But just remember, it's a fascinating statistic that 75%, 73% of the general population are present-oriented thinkers. Annree.
Yeah, and the other stat that's important is, we said that 82% of people don't feel heard, valued, and appreciated. That statistic comes from the fact that when connectors and pioneers are accidental inside their teams, you're not creating that environment for the nurturer, creative, and guardian to be heard. And I want you to think about that for a moment. Is there nurturers, creatives, and guardians on their team? And are you creating that psychological safety and environment to bring out their superpowers, to bring out the best, to make sure we're hearing their opinions? We will send this in the chat afterwards, that you can actually take your 5 voices assessment for free, and you'll get this 5-page report. So don't worry about downloading it now. It'll come in the email afterwards with the recording. I'm hoping we can delete the little noise that happened at the beginning. But when we work with teams, what we're trying to get across today is the fact that you need to have tools straight away that you can apply when you leave, and keep them alive when we finish with you. So after we run a first workshop, everyone will know their 5 voices order. What are their strength voices? What are their weak voices? Who are different to them? And everyone gets this team dynamic slide. And here I've actually put my siblings in Ireland, my kids, and Rob on this slide to show how different we all are. So we all have a different first voice. Some of us make decisions more on people and values. Some of us make decisions based on logic and data. That's thinkers versus feelers on Myers-Briggs. And Rob spoke about the fact that some of us are more present. We live in the here and now. Others of us are racing ahead and thinking about the future. But what's more important in the team dynamics slide is that you look at those bars in the middle, which tells you people on your team who are completely opposite to you in every dimension. So you look at the pioneer versus the nurturer, completely opposite. And these are the people that we can actually have conflict and challenges with, because we see the world very differently. Another key tool you get, which is incredibly important, is how do you run your meetings? How do you create an environment where those 82% of people are heard, valued, and appreciated? We actually have a rules of engagement framework where you actually use this inside your team meetings to say, we want the nurturer to speak first. You represent 4 out of 10 people, our customers and our organization. No one is going to critique your idea. We appreciate your commitment to champion people and defend values. Then you get the creative to speak, then the guardian, and then the loudest voices, connector and pioneer. And that is how you create psychological safety. Having these visual tools, cheat sheets that you can use every single day to think about, who am I on the team? Who are the other people on the team who are different to me? And how do I bring out the best out of everyone, especially if you're a leader? I want you to think about your last meeting that you had with your brand team, cross-functional team, or your own team. And did you create that environment where everyone is heard inside their team, giving their opinion? Or is there louder voices shooting people down where people don't feel safe to give their opinion? Why is all this important? Because you have to have visual frameworks to build high-performing teams and organizations. If you want to, the 35 people of you on the call now, if you want to maximize team performance, every team inside your organization is like this flywheel. High-performing teams are teams that are communicating clearly and effectively and transparent. They know how to build trust with each other and the psychological safety. Only when you've got that communication and relational trust are you going to have that alignment, able to execute and build team capacity for the future. We need every team inside the organization green and healthy, operating like a flywheel that's moving with momentum, building their own healthy culture. And this is not easy to do, because very often as leaders and people inside teams, we're pushing people to work faster, push for results. We're working more on how can we get aligned, execute, even if we're not communicating and building trust effectively. And for a winning culture, it's not about working. We cannot just work, like Rob said, with the leaders of business and the leaders of leaders. We need to have visual tools that we can cascade down into the whole organization. That's actually inclusive leadership development for everyone, so that you're turning all these teams inside the organization healthy and green. And that's not easy to do, but you have to do that nowadays. When we go into work with teams where we're trying to solve problems around having bold conversations, having healthier cultures, you need to go back to the basics of everyone understanding who they are when it comes to leading themselves well. There's no shortcuts in this. It comes to everyone understanding their superpowers and who are the people who are different to them, and how do we bring the best out of every single person on the team. Because if you do leadership development just for the exec team, that will work potentially down to the leaders of leaders, but will not filter down to the leaders of teams, nor the leaders of self if you're a person actually on a team. What you need to remember is leaders define culture. But what's more important, which we forget all the time, is that sub-leaders define subcultures inside teams. So you need to be giving your leaders and managers and their people tools to help them create that green, healthy culture and get that flywheel moving in every team inside the organization. So if I'm a CEO of a pharmaceutical company and I've worked with my team, my exec team, we've got a healthy culture. I'm standing up at my monthly meetings talking about what a great culture we have inside this company. But I could then be sitting in this lower line at the bottom towards the left, where you see the red shadow. I'm sitting in a dominating team where there's an unhealthy culture, and I'm not seeing that healthy culture that the exec team is experiencing. So if you're a leader of teams or leading yourself or a HR person on this call, you've got to be giving everyone tools to turn every one of these flywheels turning if you want to have a healthy culture inside your organization. And this is a lovely tool I want to give you today. It's one of my favorite tools, which is incorporated into the 5 voices are independent. I want you, each of you on this call today, to ask yourself, are you a liberating leader for yourself and a liberating leader for your team or cross-functional team? Are you creating that culture of empowerment and opportunity for your people? The only way to do that is to bring high support and high challenge in equal measures. And none of us are natural liberators, unfortunately. We have to learn to calibrate high support and high challenge in equal measures. The high support part is, are we able to bring training, resourcing your people effectively, investing time in them one-on-one in informal training? Are you giving your team members opportunities? And importantly, are you recognizing and appreciating your people? But are you able to bring that high support in equal measures to high challenge, which is giving direct feedback, promoting excellence in your team, making sure your people meet their deadlines, enforcing accountability, and stretch goals? That's what a liberating leader does. And you don't need to be a people leader to be a liberating leader. But I want you to think for a second, are you a liberating leader all the time? Or are you like me? We all have a default tendency when we're not thinking. My natural tendency is actually to be a dominating leader, which can cause a culture of fear and manipulation, because I find it very easy to give direct feedback, probably too direct at times, enforcing accountability and stretch goals. And even when I'm bringing support, when I think it's high support, people are feeling it like low support, probably due to the tone that I'm taking with them. So my area of growth is I need to be better at bringing that high support with high challenge. But some of you on the call might sit in the protect quadrant, which is you're very good at bringing all this high support, but that can cause a culture of entitlement and mistrust. What I mean by that is you're protecting your team, you're not giving direct feedback, and somebody may have missed a deadline 4 times and you've let it go. And on the 5th time, passive aggressive tendencies come up. You blow up and say, I've had enough. I can't cope with this. You've missed your deadline 5 times. And the person says to you, I didn't even know that was a problem. You never give me that direct feedback. So if you sit in the protect quadrant, creating that protect culture, you need to be better at bringing high challenge, giving direct feedback, promoting excellence, pressure of deadlines in equal measure to what you're good at, high support. This is a great tool for you to think about, where do you sit on this for your team? And if you're brave enough, it's a great exercise to go to your people and ask them, where do you see me for you on this matrix, and have a discussion. Visual tools allow you to have discussions that would otherwise be difficult to have. They create that actually safe environment. I think we're nearly coming to the end with that little blip with the noise. So I think we'll just turn off the slides now for the last 4 minutes for any questions. I would like to say that Rob and I are offering everyone on the call and who watches the recording a 45-minute one-on-one session to understand if you have any leadership gaps yourself, or if you want to discuss around what's happening inside your team, with no commitment of running any workshops. We like giving our time to people.
So you've done well, everybody. You've taken on a lot of information there over the last 40 minutes, but we would love to just open it up now to the floor and ask you to, maybe if you'd like to come off mute or to pop it into the chat, but just give us your thoughts, your questions, maybe something that's an experience that you've had that relates to this, but we'd be really fascinated to hear any of those from you now. So please do feel free to jump off, to jump off mute, I should say, and to contribute with a question, a comment,
or type anything into the chat.
And Annree, have you stopped sharing that?
Yep.
Okay. So these frameworks are really vital, because just to highlight again, they're visual. They are the type of frameworks that create that common objective language that can really be utilized quickly and effectively and immediately. There's many of the tools, but having them available now within the types of learning that we do, it's so important that the learning that we undertake and that we promote is visual, something that's immediately applicable and something that's memorable. And all of these tools hit those notes, as you probably get an idea. They can all be revisited as well. So we encourage you to understand more about it and find out where you can start to get some new insights into your leadership and how you can uncover a new way forward.
So watch out for today we'll send an email later today or on Monday with the recording. We'll also send you a link to take your 5 voice assessment. I'd really encourage it. Even if you don't want to embrace 5 voices inside your teams, that's absolutely fine, but we'll add richness and layers to your understanding about yourself, which is actually so important. There's the option of the 45-minute one-on-one session with Rob, which we'd love if you would like to take us up on that offer. There's a few learnings for us today about volume and all of that, but it's great to have so many of you on the call today. It's Friday. I hope your afternoon is not too busy, and we're here if you ever need us for anything. We basically run bespoke workshops for people, and we're about to start a leadership circle, which I forgot to share on the slide, a 10-week leadership circle program, but I'll actually put it in the email as well, where if you aren't ready to run a workshop with your team, even sending one person on a program like the leadership circle for 10 weeks, they will walk away with 25 visual tools that they can run as monthly lunch and learn sessions into your organization. That's the power. We want you to be able to take away the tools and multiply what you're learning inside your team, not just keeping it to yourself.
So that's the top of the hour for us. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend, and we would love to hear from you again soon. All the best, and thank you very much for being on the call.